Welcome to Behind the Scenes, where I will showcase the making of a map part for an original character, multi-animator project, Beautiful Cruel World. This map was hosted by one of my friends, Animate on YouTube. It was her first ever map, so I had to join to give her some support. What makes this map unique is the requirement of a sketchy style done with textured brushes and a grayscale color scheme. Before we begin, I want to address that this map is inspired by the ending credits of Attack on Titan. However, I have not seen enough of the said anime to have a concrete opinion about it. I solely joined the map through friendship ties rather than fandom. As this is an OC map, I'm using my original character Fern, whom I featured before in this behind the scenes series. She is the main character from my story Path of Stars, but I won't spend more time talking about her this time. I picked her because she fit the lyrics on part 1 and wanted an excuse to animate her again. Textured brushes are a good way to add texture, repeated sequences, and some fun fuzziness to your art. Personally, I don't use them that much because I enjoy drawing my own textures stroke by stroke. But I still wanted to accept the challenge and experiment with something I haven't worked with often. Before this animation project, I didn't know that Adobe Animate had a brush library. Like, what? You're telling me that I've been using this program for over a decade and only now get to know about this? I guess it doesn't really matter much, since I enjoy using the default round brush everywhere I go. But it was definitely a happy shocker, to say the least. As I discovered the brush library, I had to seek out the brush that uses them. Adobe Animate has 3 different brush tools, which only one can use the textures. To activate the desired texture, you need to go to the brush library and double-click on the texture you want to use. Then you go to the brush tool properties and there select the desired texture along with the size and other options. For this project, I picked these 5 brushes. Charcoal for line art and filling in ears and the nose. Chalk round for bolder strokes and filling the main color of the body. Pencil feather for the markings. Pencil tip for the cross-hatching effect to illustrate shading and highlights. And dark ink wash for the shading underneath Fern. Another quirk of this multi-animator project was that it required the use of limited animation. Limited animation is animation that relies on keyframes or other well-placed frames to imply the movement, without the help of in-between frames. Since the style of this map is requested to be sketchy, I figured it wouldn't be too much work. Which it wasn't in total. However, I did run into issues, which I will get to it in a moment. To begin my struggle, I did a rough storyboard where I aimed to get the timing and perspective of the first shot right. I actually had to redo the first shot, since the walk that Fern does was a bit funky, to say the least. But a second time came true, and I figured I could just copy-paste the 4 frames that created the illusion of movement. If only my perspective struggles had been my only worry, this behind the scenes would have a completely different tone. But seeing what happens next, I will give you a rant warning, since the rest of the process was excruciating. Ready? Here we go. Adobe programs in general have a bit of fragile reputation. What I mean by that is how often they tend to crash or freeze despite being the industry standard programs for many fields within design. That being said, I've had rather pleasant experiences with Adobe Animate as a program, but what I earlier called excruciating felt like an understatement at the time. Dear Adobe, when you add texture brushes to your program, please make sure they won't make the entire program go numb when you use them. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when I'm subscribed to a program, paying X amount of money to use it legally, you would expect everything to work flawlessly, no matter the feature you use. When my programs start to slow down, it often means I have already spent hours of work, added multiple layers, and, in general, have done some work there that excuses the lag. Not when I do a single frame and several strokes of texture. The first shot of my part was so painfully slow to work on. Each stroke ended up taking several minutes in and of itself to load. Moving between layers and navigating through grouped elements was mentally damaging as I tried to open and focus on what to do next. What I thought could help me was to turn each frame into a symbol. That way, I could group the line art and colors in a single package, which would ease the workload. It helped somewhat, but I wonder whether it added more weight to the program to process each layer within the symbol shown. Despite them being only still graphics, it would have still added multiple layers to be processed individually, regardless of whether they were graphics or not. However, this is complete speculation on my part. I only use the program and have zero understanding of its code, so my theory may be completely fabricated. Frankly, the experience ensured that I will probably never use texture brushes in Adobe Animate ever again. I can't put into words how it felt to work at snail's pace on a project that you knew didn't even need that much time to be worked on. The thought alone gets my blood boiling. That's a lot coming from me, who has been described as a patient saint by many in my life. I'm sorry if I sound frustrated, but this was honestly the worst experience I've ever had when working on an animation. Words can't describe how bad I feel about it, especially since I wanted to give support to my friend. And here I am, wishing death upon a program that I've grown to love, despite its quirks and lack of perfection at times. I thought this behind the scenes video would be a good opportunity to highlight something I had completely missed all this time when using the program, when I first discovered the brush library. However, seeing how poor the experience was, I'm saddened by the fact how useless this feature was, at least to my purposes. Granted, if these texture brushes are used at a limited capacity and as a highlight to a project, I bet they would work wonderfully. Okay, despite despising the process, one of my best friends suggested, why didn't you make the texture happen in Adobe After Effects instead? Meaning, I had just done flats in Adobe Animate, imported the project into After Effects, and then added an effect that would have turned those flats into scribbly, moving textures. That would have been a viable option if I had been given that idea from the get-go. Unfortunately, the suggestion came after I was done struggling and had boiled my blood several times during the course of the week I worked on the part. And that is completely my fault for not seeing an easier way out. I tend to be stubborn, and when I decide to do something a certain way, I most often die on that hill, even at my own detriment. Despite the experience itself being awful, I still have no regrets about going through it. While all the negatives I had to say about the process felt like drinking poison, I'm still quite happy with the outcome. If I could have done something differently, it would definitely be to go with my friend's suggestion. Make the flats in Adobe Animate and animate them separately in Adobe After Effects. Thankfully, my style doesn't depend on texture brushes, which is my saving grace in all of this. Every time Adobe has asked for suggestions for ways to improve Animate, I have always, without a fail, added textured brushes. Perhaps the next step I have to take is to suggest to them that to make the texture brushes somehow more lightweight for the program than they are right now. Or maybe they have already worked on that, since my part is nearly 1 year old, so what I'm saying might be completely irrelevant. Admittedly, I initially withheld this behind the scenes video, because I wasn't sure whether I wanted to share such an infuriating experience with you all. However, I also want to be honest and share my experiences through these videos. I want to showcase that it's okay sometimes to feel lost and frustrated with the process, regardless of the outcome. I was fortunate enough to have the final product be something I was happy with. Of course, it may not always be the case, and that's completely okay too. At times, every artist and animator goes through struggles, doubts, and even emotions of giving up. It is valid to feel each of those feelings, and it is okay to drop a project that gives you nothing but misery. You don't have to struggle for the outcome to be a painful reminder of what you went through. In this case, I wanted to pull through, not only for my friend, but because I wanted to challenge myself and stubbornly prove that it is indeed possible to use texture brushes in Adobe Animate. Without this experience, I wouldn't know now that it isn't that wise to do so. Or at least to me. Regardless of everything, I hope you still got some entertainment out of this video. Thank you for giving me your time. Thank you, Hanamie, for letting me be part of your very first math and allowing me to animate and draw my beloved OC. In case you missed my original part, I'll have that at the end card, where you can check it out. The original map call was also finished, so I'll have that placed at the end card as well. I hope you all have a fantastic day without any artistic struggles. Everyone deserves them once in a while. Stay safe and have a good day or night!